We have a visitor today. I did not get to meet him until this morning, and I'm very impressed with him. I mentioned to the faculty and staff that he was coming on Monday, and that several of them had heard him speak before and told me what a treat we'd have in store for us this morning. He is the founder of Jumpstart Foundry. Is the former chief architect and director of technology at Emma, which is something that MBA uses, and he lives and creates in Nashville with his two sons, Tristan and Chiara, is that right? And he is passionately devoted to advancing Nashville in many ways, and he's also devoted to the English football club Tottenham Hotspur. Let's give a round of applause for Marcus Whitney.
Good morning, gentlemen. So I think I'll be on theme after that. Matt, that was tremendous. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.
Thank you. Well, gentlemen, my Nashville story started 15 years ago. I moved here from Atlanta. My oldest son was 1 year old, and my youngest was in the belly, and realized that I didn't want to live in Atlanta, and my children's mother said, you know, Nashville would probably be a great place. She had gone to high school here, and so we got in the car. I had a little grocery store that I was owning and operating, and we sold that, put everything that we had in the car, and drove here 15 years ago, 2000. I didn't really have any network or any connections, but I knew how to serve, and so went and got a job waiting tables at a restaurant called Rio Bravo on West End. That's no longer around. It's now Stony River. And tried to figure out what I was going to do to take care of my two boys. Realized that when I was young, I was fortunate to have an uncle who worked at IBM Computers, and he bought me a computer, and I was able to program a little bit. And so I thought, you know, the internet's around now. There's probably a good chance that I could teach myself how to program and do something good for my family. So about 8 months later of teaching myself how to program, got my first job at a company here called HealthStream. Stayed there for a year, moved on to another company called Anode, and then 1 year later finally found my home, which was Emma Email Marketing. Stayed there for 4 years. Will Weaver and Clint Smith were the co-founders of that company. Really took me under their wing, allowed me to develop as a person, and show me what it meant to build a great culture where people could have fun and also create value for their customers at the same time. Left there after 4 years, deciding that I wanted to create my own business. Started a business called Moon Toast. That business ended up being venture backed. We raised about $20 million and opened up businesses in Boston and San Francisco. I traveled all over the country, a little bit all over the world with that business. Came back here last year to lead Jumpstart Foundry, which is now a $3 million a year healthcare fund. We invest in about 15 to 20 companies a year. And in addition to that, I sit on a couple of boards, Habitat for Humanity, the Nashville Public Library Foundation, and some others. Don't say any of that stuff to be impressive. I say it because I wanted to think this morning as I was going to, put together some words to talk to you about what would I have wanted to hear when I was your age, as a young man, with all the things that I'm told every single day and that I see in front of me in the world every day. What does it mean to find yourself and find the path to be successful? When I think about how fortunate I am, both in terms of what other people did for me and what I'm fortunate to be able to do as a leader and serve other people today, I would have to say there's one ability that stands out above every other one, and I would have never imagined it, but it's the ability that we've been talking about all morning. It's the ability called empathy. Raise your hand if you know what the word empathy means. Okay, pretty good. So by definition, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. And that doesn't necessarily sound like a very manly thing to do, to be focused on understanding and sharing the feelings of another human being. But I can assure you that in 2015 and going forward, that is what the world is really about. We're no longer in a factory, industrial-based economy. We're in an innovation economy. We're in a solution economy. We're in a people economy. And what will be more important for you than anything else that you do for the rest of your life will be how well you work with other people. And working with other people doesn't mean in just the work setting. It means out on the field. It means on the stage. It means around the club table. It means every time you have a chance to interact and collaborate with somebody else, how empathetic are you? For me, empathy is the ability to recognize the importance of feelings and to develop what they call emotional intelligence. So in leadership, I have the benefit of leading a small team of what people call millennials. For most of them, it's their first job out of college. And most managers who are experienced business managers hate managing millennials. They say millennials don't know the meaning of hard work. They say millennials don't understand the chain of command. They say millennials don't have any respect. They say millennials aren't loyal. I would say the millennials who I have the honor of serving as a leader are everything but what people typically say millennials are. They are hardworking, they are loyal, they are committed, they're dedicated, they are fiercely passionate. But the difference is, I realized if I was going to lead millennials, I had to understand what was important to them. I had to actually be attuned to their feelings, and I had to understand that what they really wanted to do was make sure they were making a difference in the world. I don't pay them nearly as much as what their friends get paid, but all of their friends are envious of them and the position that they have. And it's because of the relationship I've been able to build with them. You have that opportunity right now. You're all leading in something. It might be in a social setting, it might be in an academic setting, it might be in an athletic setting, it may be in the creative setting, but you're all leading in some way, shape, or form right now in your life. Take a self-assessment and think, how are you empathetic as a leader? Do you pay attention to the feelings of the people that you're leading? Because that's vital. In innovation, I'm fortunate that I get to spend my every day looking at problems and thinking of brand new solutions. No day is ever boring for me. I'm always creating, always creating. But one thing I realize is that the most important aspect of creation, if you're really looking to serve somebody else, is understanding, is it working? Is it working for that person? And you can't tell that just by being proud of your own creation. You have to be really in touch with the person you're trying to serve, with that value you're trying to create for them. And you have to listen. And you have to be willing to move from what you thought was the right solution to what they might guide you towards. So you might be the starting point, but the person who you're trying to help is the finishing point. And that's more empathy. In entrepreneurship, how many of you would want to be entrepreneurs when you grow up? I'm just wondering. It's probably 3 times that number. Entrepreneurs are rebels. Entrepreneurs don't always fit in to the space that they're in. And maybe, if you didn't raise your hand, you just didn't want to disappoint somebody, or maybe you're just not sure about yourself. But I can tell you that entrepreneurship is going to be one of the ways that we're going to see major positive change happen in this world, especially from here in America. And in entrepreneurship, you have to serve a customer. And customer loyalty is how you keep your business going and growing. But customer loyalty is a two-way street. Entrepreneurs who empower the people who serve their customers to be empathetic, those are the companies that are going to win. The companies that can understand that the customer's perspective and feelings matter are the ones who are going to keep those customers over the long term. Massively important to the business world. In community, I just witnessed a massive showing of empathy. Wasn't one I was expecting, but it's one that made my heart get warm this morning, and I'm going to carry with me for the rest of the day. The way that you all responded in support of your colleague, Sam, that was tremendous. It says a lot about this school. It says a lot about what you deem is important. And when I looked out, I saw smiles as you were doing it. It was something that made you feel good. Keep that. Remember that. Remember that To be in community means to support other people. There's always going to be somebody who's not as strong as the rest of us in our community at any given point in time. And our community is judged based on how we support and love that person. So I want to commend you for that this morning. And then there's the greater society. Today, much of your life is made up of MBA. You're probably all, working very, very hard in your classes. You have lots of homework. You have extracurricular activities. You're developing yourselves personally. There's probably not a whole lot outside of MBA that you've got a good lens on right now. But at some point, you're going to graduate. You're going to go out into the world, and you're going to see a lot of things that you're going to look at and say, that's not right. Somebody should be doing something about that. Let that person be you. It's going to feel like you don't have the extra money or time or energy to do it, but you got to find it. And I promise you, when you lead with empathy in society, other people will follow you. They're just waiting for you to take that first step. Competition. In team sports, usually the team that is most well aligned internally is the team that's going to win. We're mostly in competition with ourselves. How well can I feel what my teammate is going through? How can I support that person? How can I make sure I'm doing my job so that that person is in as good a position to do their job as possible? And then there's always the fact that how we feel about things actually impacts our performance. So getting in the head of our competitor is a pretty good way to ensure our success. That's the flip side of empathy. So empathy is not always just being nice, but it's understanding the importance of feelings overall. And then finally, and this is probably the thing I wish somebody had said to me when I was your age the most, empathy for yourself. You're all developing and figuring out who you are. And that's probably the hardest work you'll ever do in this world. And you're all going to come out pretty good on the other side. But there's going to be some tough days. There's going to be some days where you didn't get something, your energy level wasn't right, you didn't feel good about the way you performed or, what kind of a friend you were. That's okay. There's not one of us who hasn't made the same mistakes you're going through, and we're all going to keep making those mistakes for the rest of our lives. Developing empathy for yourself is going to be the ability for you to bounce back from those minor setbacks and come back and understand that those were learning experiences and not things that you should be, super hard on yourself for. I really, really wish somebody would have told me that. I spent 3 years of my life being way too difficult on myself, and I didn't progress very well in any way, emotionally, financially. And when I finally realized I was doing the best I could, all of a sudden I would recover faster. I took care of myself better. I paid attention to my emotions, and I understood that those emotions were actually signaling something to me. Maybe sometimes they were telling me I needed a rest. Maybe sometimes they were telling me I needed to go have some fun. Maybe sometimes they were telling me I need to be thinking about somebody else instead of myself so much. So pay attention to feelings. I do believe that the men in this world who pay attention to feelings are the greatest leaders that we have. They're the ones who make us all awe-inspired. They're the ones who make us all believe in ourselves and in humanity that we can all do something greater. So hopefully this morning has been one where you think a little bit more about the value of feelings and about the value of empathy. I promise you it's the most important thing I do every day. And I hope to meet many of you today and onward in your journey. Thank you.